the Prime Minister, Theresa May, has said exiting the European Union without a deal would still be better than the Canada-style Brexit trade deal that could, in her words, break up the United Kingdom. Is that claim of a possible breakup of the Union realistic, or just, well, to coin a phrase, Project Fear, scaremongering? Or is Theresa May really the saviour of Brexit? Speaking to the BBC's Ben Wright in New York yesterday, Theresa May defended her Brexit strategy following criticism from the EU and some of her own MPs.
What we have put on a table is a proposal which delivers on the vote that people gave in the referendum, brings an end to the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice, takes us out of the common agricultural policy, out of the common fisheries policy, protects jobs, ensures there's no hard border between Northern Ireland and Ireland, and keeps the union of the United Kingdom. Now, what the European Union have said is they have concerns with aspects of that, so let's hear those concerns.
That's Theresa May speaking yesterday. The Conservative MEP, David Campbell Bannerman, is back with us. He's often described as the creator of this Super Canada trade model. David, how are you doing? We're giving you all the credit.
I'm fine, William.
Giving you all the credit. Remember, everyone's trying to get you these days. You remember where you started. You started on this show. All right, lay it out for us, David. Lay it out for us. What is the Canada deal?
Well, just to explain Super Canada, this is based, the template is the Canada deal, the CETA deal, CETA, that was signed just last year with the EU and Canada, and it gives nearly 99% access to the EU single market for Canadian goods with no free movement and no costs as well. You don't have to pay fees. Now, we can do better than that, hence Super Canada, which is bigger, better and wider. It does more on services. And I think what's important, the EU has already offered us basically Super Canada, 100% tariff-free access, 100% quota-free access, and that is very important to the border between Northern Ireland and Ireland.
Why is it better than Chequers?
Well, Chequers, I think, kills our ability to do proper international trade deals around the world. I'm afraid, the Prime Minister's got this very wrong. She's in New York talking to President Trump. Well, under the Congress law, apparently, they can't even do a trade deal with Britain unless goods are included, and that Chequers kills that. And that is really a disaster. So, and frankly, I've worked nearly 10 years now on EU trade deals, including with Canada and India, New Zealand. New Zealand wants to talk about 50% tariffs on New Zealand lamb that the EU imposes. I'm not saying we get rid of them, but, at least we could talk about them and make our own decisions as a United Kingdom. And we won't be able to do that. We'll have to follow this common rule book, which is just following goods laws from the EU. And you've got this customs facilitation agreement, which is incredibly complex and costly and won't work. And the EU doesn't even trust us to do it because they're about to sue us for £3 billion for allegedly not actually accounting for Chinese duties properly or Chinese duties on Chinese goods. So Chequers doesn't work. And frankly, the EU doesn't want it either. I've had private conversations with Mr. Barnier, the chief negotiator, and he made it very clear, as Mr. Juncker did, you cannot be in part of the single market. That's what Mr. Juncker said in his big speech in Strasbourg a few weeks ago. I was there for it. And what he means by that is Chequers is dead, and they've had enough warnings. And Salzburg, actually, I'm afraid we hit a brick wall, and it's actually going to... it's going to get worse from there on. And a lot of these countries like the US are saying, we cannot do a proper trade deal with you. So this is going to kill a lot of the benefits of leaving the EU, and that's not acceptable.
But your party leader, Theresa May, thinks your plan would lead to the breakup of the United Kingdom.
No, it's not true. I mean, she is obsessed with Northern Ireland as an issue. And, I want to see a proper solution. I worked, as you know, as a special advisor over 20 years ago on the peace process. That's very, very important to keep that. But the border was not even mentioned in the Good Friday Agreement. And we're not talking about going back to violence. We're talking about very limited checks well away from the border as part of a package of measures. And the point is, even the EU requires a lot of electronic customs now, and with 1 hour's notice before you actually cross the border. That is EU customs code guidance. And if we're clever about this with trusted trader schemes, there's all sorts of, there's a package of measures. I recommend the European Research Group report on this, which is backed by two Secretaries of State for Northern Ireland, former ones that Owen Paterson Masterson, Theresa Villiers, and David Davis, who's negotiating for us, and Lord Trimble, and Sammy Wilson of the DUP. Look, they're all backing this as a sensible way forward. I think what's happened is the Northern Ireland issue has been hijacked by those that just want to keep us trapped in the customs union and single market. Institute of Directors have been disgraceful on this, and so have the CBI and business in general. And I'm afraid, they're being lazy and they're turning, the reality in the world is 9/10 of the growth in the world in the next 10 to 15 years is not coming from Europe. It's coming from outside of Europe. And we're already 57% of our exports go to the rest of the world. And that's growing and growing and growing. That's where the future lies. And they're trying to kill the future in order lazily to hold on to the present.
David, thank you very much. David Campbell Bannerman, the Conservative MP, who has been really championing this Super Canada model for quite some time. It's getting a lot of talk these days. Jason J. Hunter is with us, a former international trade negotiator, and Shankar Singham from the Institute of Economic Affairs. He was the author of that Plan A plus Brexit report earlier in the week that got a lot of press coverage that recommended a Canada-style deal, and is in our Millbank studio. Shankar, thank you very much. Jason, welcome to you too. Jason, what do you make of what you've just heard? Why isn't that reasonable to you?
I think I tend to agree with David on a lot of what he was saying, actually. There is no doubt that we will get a brilliant trade deal with the European Union. But there is a massive time chasm between March 29th next year and when that deal will be signed. Now, we spent 2 days in Geneva speaking with some of the leading international trade experts in the world. They are being spoken to by other countries all over the world at the same time. And everybody, and I mean everybody outside of Westminster, thinks that the UK are putting the cart before the horse. If you think about what we're talking about right now, we're talking about a withdrawal agreement about how the United Kingdom separates from the European Union.
Right.
There's two parts to the WA withdrawal agreement. The first part is the legal technical separation. And that includes protecting citizens' rights, sorting out the financial obligations, and putting in a permanent backstop to make sure there is never a border put back onto the island of Ireland. That's part one. Part two is what everybody in Westminster is talking about, which is all these future trade deals. And that's just a political declaration, and we can begin to talk about that.
Oh, we are talking about it, but you can't get it unless you get part one.
Exactly. Now, the problem with no agreement on those first three pieces, specifically the border and the island of Ireland.
And that's really the only outstanding one, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, there's other things like geographical indicators. But
we can do that. We can fix that.
But that's easy. That'll get waved through. The big one is how you solve this situation in Ireland. The UK government have put up a proposal which asks the European Union to change its basic four founding principles of the single market. We want free trade with goods, but not services. Yeah. We don't want free movement of capital. Basically, we're leaving the club and then saying, you need to change your rules to help us now we've left.
Hence the use of the word ridiculous. Unicorns a lot.
So Chequers is dead. It always was dead. It never made it out of the building alive.
And your alternative?
There is no way to make a success of Brexit. There's just no way, because with no WA, you've got no transition agreement. That means cliff edge. So every company in the UK that's manufacturing anything at all for export, or anybody in their supply chain or their customer line that exports anything, will be devastated. They told us in Geneva the first industry to go will probably be the agri-food sector, because British farmers' costs will increase. As the pound drops off a cliff, you've got increased fuel costs, you've got increased animal food costs, and then if they're producing milk, they've got to ship it to the yogurt or cheese maker, and then they put it into plastic pots, et cetera, and then it gets exported. So their costs will be increasing at the same time as our customers all over the world, not just in the EU, because we're not leaving the EU 27, we're also leaving another 60 countries' trade agreements that we already have with the EU. So all of those third countries around the world, all of our customers will have to apply import tariffs on everything they buy from the United Kingdom.
Unless we get some kind of new arrangement.
which will take years. What they told us in Geneva is the most likely new arrangement we'll get will probably be with a country with a liberalized trade economy, with a democratic, liberal-style government. The quickest, easiest one would probably be with Canada. And then the rest of the world will be waiting, sitting back, waiting for the EU-UK deal to be done before they do any trade deals with us.
And how long did it take the EU to get a deal with Canada?
That one was about 8 years.
Yeah.
Switzerland took over a decade. They've negotiated 120 separate agreements and cooperation agreements with the EU. Japan, I think, was about 8 years. And the experts are telling us we can probably expect 8 to 10 years. And they said the EU is like a bait ball underwater. You know, all these fish swimming around in a big ball to protect each other. All the other countries are waiting for the big fat tuna fish, which is the UK, to swim away by itself, and they're sitting there like sharks to zoom in and take bites out of our economy. Agri-foods, they said 18 months to 2 years before your agri-food sector is dead.
Yeah. All right. No, I get what you're saying. There is no way to make a success of Brexit. You're saying the deal that you currently have is far and away better than everything you're trying to do right now to create a replacement. Shankar Singham, your response.
So, I mean, I actually agree with a lot of what has been said by your two guest commentators before.
Except and yet that one's for Brexit and the other isn't.
Well, except that what I'd say, I mean, I agree with the notion that Chequers doesn't work. It doesn't work for the EU. It doesn't work for us. And unfortunately, because the government has taken this position for so long, it has allowed the other things it should have been doing over this period. Remember, Article 50 was triggered in March of 2017. We're now heading towards the end of 2018. Yeah. We haven't really made any progress in terms of actual negotiations with the EU. We've negotiated a lot with ourselves, and what we've resulted in...
By which you mean Tories debating with Tories?
Well, the government's sort of trying to line up various factions around a proposal, but the proposal they've come up with is one that doesn't work for anybody. So I would agree that we put ourselves in a very, very difficult situation. However, I don't think that it is completely without any hope at all. But I do think, and I said this when we launched our Plan A Plus on Monday, I do think it needs a radical change of approach, and that radical change of approach is basically to say, look, we've been looking down the wrong end of the telescope on this. The other countries in the world that actually have quite a lot of goodwill for the UK. They've got a lot of goodwill for the UK because they recognise that the direction of travel of European regulation is increasingly anti-competitive and prescriptive. They recognise that the global trading system is in crisis, and they recognise that global regulation, the regulatory system in the world, is moving in the wrong direction, and they feel that the EU is the outlier. As if you go to Geneva and you talk to WTO ambassadors, they will all tell you that the EU is the outlier. And if they regard us as a potential ally. Now, the more we lock into the European regulatory system, the less we will be regarded as an ally and the more irrelevant we will become. And if we become irrelevant, then this future where they simply will take their pound of flesh now in our WTO transition becomes the reality. It is incredibly important that the UK is able, in talking to other countries about our WTO transition, which are things like the agricultural import quotas and all of those things, it's critically important we're able to say to those countries, look, we can offer you greater liberalisation in the future, we can do trade deals in the future. We believe that you can actually, there's still time to... Sorry, there's still... Can I finish my point, please?
Shango, I'll come back to you, Jason.
I'd like to finish my point, please. It's what we can do. I believe we can get to a withdrawal agreement because the withdrawal agreement is the future framework for the trade relationship. Yeah. If we sort of pivot right now to a trade agreement, we've called it an advanced trade agreement with a maximum mutual regulatory recognition because we will be completely aligned on day one. We already have zero tariffs amongst us. So if we actually put text on the table and we start the process now, we can get to a future framework for a trade relationship. Okay. We've laid out the Irish border
What's your solution to
that? We think. So there's two issues with the Irish border. One is what you do in the future generally. And there we think, look, there are lots of customs mitigants that you need to do anyway on the EU-UK front. You need to do... you need to do things like maximising the number of people who are in your trusted trader schemes. You need to maximise transactions where you've got the kinds of customs system that moves away from transaction-based, i.e. goods clearing and forms attached to the goods, to what's called systems-based customs clearance, which is where your forms are attached actually to the trader rather than the good itself. There are lots of mitigations in customs that we've laid out in our paper around about page 80. And on the Irish border, you'd have all those mitigations and you'd have more. So, for example, we'd have a commitment to, there already is, for example, in the island of Ireland, a common SPS area, sanitary phytosanitary measures. There's a common SPS area. You could maintain the common SPS area. Most of the checks are veterinary checks, are meat-based product checks. That's why you have to have border inspection posts. If you maintain the common SPS area, then you don't need to have those. If you use trusted third parties to do inland clearance in facilities, then you mitigate the hardening of the Irish border. And then with respect to the backstop, we would say, well, what you can do with the backstop, I think the only backstop that makes any sense is it has been an agreement, obviously, a free trade agreement with zero tariffs, and then all of these mitigants and a commitment to maintaining the common SPS area.
Okay, and some of the politics around that is important as well, not least whether that will be acceptable, for example, to the DUP in terms of the relationship, in terms of customs and regulations with the European Union and with Britain, and no difference in the approach. But also this question of whether that kind of deal or the Canada deal or some version of that would threaten the Union. Stuart is there. Yes. Hello, Stuart. Welcome.
Hi. How you doing?
Stuart's in South Belfast. Do you think Theresa May and her Chequers deal could be the saviour of the United Kingdom?
No. I think that Chequers is dead and gone. I think that the big issue with it is, a part of it is the border. I do think that what they're actually pushing for is a no deal. Chequers is out of it because she's been tampering with the 4 pillars of the EU, the 4 trade pillars of the EU.
And let's just develop that point a bit, Stuart. If it does turn out to be a no deal, do you think that's a threat to the United Kingdom?
Yes, I do. I think that Scotland will ask for a referendum, and I think that Northern Ireland will also ask for a referendum on a United Ireland or Scotland to leave the EU. And to be honest with you, I would even be surprised at Wales even having a go at it, you know.
Wow.
But the truth is that Chequers is a waste of time. It's gone now, so it is. She's lost that opportunity. She went in with her idea and tried to tamper with the 4 pillars of the EU trade. And it's just not the way to do it. They all speak about the EU being disrespectful. Theresa May was disrespectful. My way or the highway. Yes, you know, and it's wrong. And again, to swing around and say that if you don't accept Chequers' plan at the minute, that is going to break up the union. So that's not the way to do this.
Stuart, thank you very much, sir. On this question of the politics of the United Kingdom, the union, Jason, do you think the union's in danger?
Well, Theresa May is saying the union's about to break up and only she can save it. She's the one that's putting it all at risk. She's putting the union at risk. The EU proposal to say have Northern Ireland retained in the customs union, that solves the border problem permanently. Now, Theresa May is saying we can't have Northern Ireland being treated differently to the rest of the United Kingdom. And yet it is constantly. Northern Ireland has its own parliament. It's got its own, well,
assembly,
its own government, but not quite.
On a good day, yeah.
But yeah, the laws are very different over there in many different topics, whether it's LGBT rights, whether it's gay marriage, whether it's abortion. There are a number of differences in Northern Ireland to the rest of the United Kingdom.
And the DUP wants a different corporation tax.
Indeed. So if you just have that sort of checks and controls between Northern Ireland or the island of Ireland and the rest of the UK, that should not be an issue. And that's the EU proposal. We spent 12 hours in meetings last Tuesday with the Parliament, with Council, with the Commission, and basically where we're at with the withdrawal agreement is you accept their proposal or you don't get a withdrawal agreement. Now, that's really fundamental because we're only 4 weeks away from October 17th when the end of the Article 50 talks stop. That's it, over. There isn't any more talking after that.
Well, if you're right, Jason, then the best way that Theresa May could protect the United Kingdom, the integrity of the United Kingdom constitutionally, would be to show the DUP the door.
But this is her problem, you see, because if she does put a border down the Irish Sea, then she loses support and the government falls.
Yeah.
So they're playing stupid political games
Catch 22
with our lives.
Shankar.
It's irresponsible.
On this question, Shankar, in terms of the politics of the United Kingdom, constitutional integrity, which deal is, many people would say being in the European Union is the best way to protect the United Kingdom's constitutional integrity. Shankar, where do you see it?
Well, I think, first of all, on the questions that were just raised, there is actually a spectrum. On one end of the spectrum is a sort of hard, untrusted border, and the other end of the spectrum is no border at all. What we're talking about is, particularly with respect to the long term, not so much the backstop, but what we're talking about is not hardening the border on the island of Ireland in ways that damage the peace process and the Good Friday Agreement. And I think that can be accomplished. Now, some of the things that I've suggested, I suppose you could interpret them as a border in the Irish Sea in some ways. But as the caller actually just said, there are many things like the single electricity market, common travel area itself. I mean, there are a lot of things that are done on an all-island basis and are not deemed to be a border in the Irish Sea. I think if we limit these things as much as we possibly can, including the common SPS area, then I think you can say to those who are concerned about a border in the Irish Sea that this certainly does not constitute such a border. And in fact, it's no different from what happens now. I mean, there are inspections now outside of Northern Ireland or at Northern Ireland ports with respect to
maybe that phrase border in the Irish
products.
Sea gives away too much as a phrase, because you're talking really about it just simply a different customs regulation system.
Well, I don't think it's a particularly helpful phrase, certainly, but I think that to repeat, I think you can do these things and not have damage the integrity of the union.
Shankar, thank you very much. Shankar Singham from the Institute of Economic Affairs. Thanks also to Jason J. Hunter. That is it from us. We'll see you tomorrow. You can continue to debate everything we've been talking about on Twitter at BBC Talkback.